Welcome in, boys and girls, ladies and germs, and freaks of all sizes. Welcome back to another coronavirus-free knife review. We're going to be taking a look at something wildly different today. Well, I don't want to say wildly different, but from a maker who's wildly different. I can't think of the last time that I did a review on a Polish knife maker's knife, or at least a Polish knife maker who still currently lives in Poland. And his name is Bartosz Herman. This particular knife is called the Slim 15, and it features a Damasteel blade with a fat carbon inlay and carbon fiber backspacer. Now, I got this from PolishKnives.com. This is part of, for those of you that have been following me on social media, especially on Instagram, I decided to do something, and this was inspired by Something Obscene Company. I decided to do something with my account because I'm fortunate, thanks to all of you guys there at home, to have a rather large following, larger than most other people doing what I do. So I wanted to take advantage of that situation during this time where people are out of work or people are home and are afraid to spend money and buy things, things like that. And I wanted to help out some other knife makers and bring attention to the amazing work that they do. So I started doing a lot of reposts and bringing the spotlight over to other really, really talented people in the EDC community. And as a part of that, I got in contact with PolishKnives.com, and we started talking back and forth, and I started looking through the selection of knives that he carries, much like what AfricanKnives.com does. AfricanKnives.com, they're pretty big. Everybody knows them. They focus on bringing over importing South African-made knives. Well, that's what PolishKnives.com does, is they focus on solely Polish knife makers. And I started scrolling through, and I came across the Herman knives. I'm going to refer to them as Herman knives because that is the maker's mark that he uses, very simply Herman. I came across his knives, and I saw so many on there, I'm like, that I really liked. I said, you know what? It's time to do a little bit more and support a little bit more and get something. Hey, you know what? I haven't gotten a new knife in a while, and it was a good excuse to do that. So, hell, why not? I'm sitting at home just like a lot of you guys are, and I'm playing on the computer, and I was tired of not pulling the trigger on something. So I did, and I hope I've inspired other people to do the same. That was kind of the point. So anyway, I got this knife in record time. I think it took 4 days from the time that I ordered it online to the time that it arrived on my doorstep, which is pretty damn fantastic. So kudos to Polish Knives for being so quick on the ball. Now let's talk about the specifications on this knife, and then we'll get into why I like it, what things I might change, who the maker is, and what he's all about. Ready? Okay, here we go. Blade length on this bad boy is 3.82 inches. So this is a good full-size knife, being just shy of a 4-inch blade. So even though it's very slim and extraordinarily lightweight, it's actually a good size for EDC, for, well, pretty much anything you would throw at it. Overall length is 8.85 inches. Again, good full-size knife. And at its thickest point on the frame, not counting the clip, it's a 1/2 inch. So that's where the slim comes from. Overall slimness and the individual panels of titanium are slim, as well as the blade stock. Now here's where all of that comes into play. It's only 4.47 ounces. It is wonderfully lightweight. As you see, it is slim, and it's so lightweight. I truly, honestly, barely feel this knife in my pocket when I'm wearing a pair of jeans. It's just fucking fantastic. I don't mean to drop the F-bomb on the air, it just kind of slipped right on out, but it's fucking fantastic. I really enjoy carrying this knife. And some of the things that people will like about this knife are things that we like about, let's say, the Grimsmo Norseman, or even more specifically, the Grimsmo Rask, because it kind of has an overall similar feel to it. It's the fact that it's slim. It's the fact that it's lightweight, that it's a very, very thin grind. It's extraordinarily sharp. And the action is crazy fast and crazy smooth. And you probably heard the hesitation in my voice as that blade dropped. This may be the most guillotine-style knife I have ever played with. I've had a lot of knives that when you drop that lock, the blade will come down quick. This one might be the fastest I've ever seen. It is almost impossible to get your thumb out of the way in time. And the flipper tab actually hit my thumbnail. It's almost impossible to get your thumb out of the way in time before it just drops down on you. Luckily, it's a lightweight blade, but it's still going to do a little bit of damage. Where was I? Okay, so you've got an all-titanium frame. Inside, we would want to look at this as and call it a liner lock, but it's not. You guys may recall some of the Jerry Moen knives that I brought out to you, in particular the Blue Maxes and Panthers. They use a system called a tab lock. So he's cutting a little channel inside of the lock side titanium, and he's screwing in a long, thin piece of titanium. And yes, that is a titanium lock that's been carbonized. And it's coming out and bringing the pressure out this way by being bent. So it works like a liner lock, but it is not a liner lock. You simply have two pieces of titanium comprising the frame. You do not have a third running the entire length of this part of the frame to be the lock. It's simply a tab that is screwed into the inside of the titanium frame. So it is more or less a tab lock. So it is titanium, which he has burnished to a beautiful, rich golden bronze. And then that has been obviously carbonized so that it will lock up, and it does lock up very, very firmly. And back here you have, as I mentioned before, a carbon fiber backspacer. I love how it's been shaped, really beautifully done. And then the inlay work here, this is actually fat carbon fiber that is infused with bronze. So again, that's why he did this golden bronze anodization on the titanium tab lock to then fit in with the theme here on the inlay. And the inlay is done exceedingly well. I mean, really, really well. You can barely tell. Actually, you can't feel a transition between the titanium and the carbon fiber. You can feel the pattern that's been milled into the titanium and then the pattern in the carbon fiber. So there's a textural difference there. But as far as feeling the seam, it is imperceptible. I love that. Then he's done an inlay of that same fat carbon material into the reverse side of the pivot. This is a proprietary titanium pivot. He does include a titanium tool for takedown, so that's nice that he includes that in the packaging. And what else? He has a proprietary ceramic bearing pivot, so he's making his own style of bearings inside using ceramic. He's also using a ceramic detent. And yes, it is smooth, it is fast, you can light switch it, and you can push button it. Now here's the funny thing. Most flippers, you will feel a little bit of a difference. You'll have a preference. Well, it flips a little faster if I light switch it, or it flips a little bit stronger if I push button it. I can't really feel a difference between the two. It comes out like a rocket. It is just perfectly done. Normally I'd take off points for not having any jimping on the flipper tab, but to be honest, it doesn't need it. It's just flat out perfect. The detent is one of the crispest, nicest detents that I've ever felt. It's not a strong detent where you feel like you're having to really, bear down on it to break it. It's honestly a lot like an R.J. Martin detent, where it's not overly hard, but the blade certainly isn't going to come out on its own, but it has a noticeable and detectable break, and it's crisp. It's like shattering a glass rod. I'm very, very impressed with the detent and the overall action on this knife. Oh, see? Almost got me little thumb. All right. So, Bartos has been making knives for about 5 years, which is a relatively short amount of time. But he's spent most of his life building things anyway. At age 12, he wanted a crossbow for himself. So what did he do? Well, he built one out of a leaf spring dear God, how powerful did that bolt travel? If he used a leaf spring for the crossbow, that's insane. At about age 16 or 17, he found a piece of steel around his parents' home and just decided, I'm going to make myself a knife. So he did. And so it began. Thanks to YouTube tutorials by gifted knife makers and the legendary book by Bob Terzola called The Tactical Folding Knife, he was well on his way, armed with some knowledge and a hell of a lot of creativity and spirit. Now, he decided to focus on knives over anything else. Earlier in his life, he wanted to build yachts, and he wanted to become a chemical engineer, but he focused on knives because of the utilitarian nature, how often the need arises for such a tool. So like many makers, this for him has evolved from a passion to a hobby where he was making knives for friends and family members, and then he's turned it into a paying career. And I think that that's pretty damn fantastic. And that's where I'd love to see all knife makers be able to go and take that love that they have for it and that passion and go from hobby to actually making a career out of it. Now, this is not an inexpensive knife. This was $1,095. It was discounted down to about $860, so a very, very good price. Again, thank you, PolishKnives.com, for creating such good deals. But with that level of price point comes a specific level of scrutiny that your knife is going to undergo. So the average Joe, well, they don't think any knife is worth $1,000. And screw them. It doesn't really matter. This doesn't apply to them. To a good seasoned knife collector, we're going to look at a few different things in order to justify that price, because there are a lot of knife makers out there that are really, really good that would charge that amount of money, or possibly even a little bit more or a little bit less for a knife in similar material. So let's start there. Let's start with the materials. You've got Damasteel. A, it's a very expensive raw material. B, working with it is a lot of labor. So there's a lot of time, and time is money. Then you get into the titanium frame. Well, that's not particularly exotic these days. Most everything is going to be a titanium framed knife in the tactical flipper world. Carbon fiber backspacer, not particularly expensive, but not cheap either. I do love the fact that it is very, very slightly raised and then beveled. You don't feel it in the hand, but when you run your fingers over it, you do feel it. And it's really cool. This is obviously done on purpose. You've got a milled pocket clip. He's milled out a pocket underneath it for the material of your pocket to fit down into it. It locks into your pocket very, very well, but it's not hard to get in or out. It's got the perfect degree of tension. Nice attention to detail in all of the milling that he's done in the frame. It's very, very fine. Beautiful kind of wave pattern, moves in the light. He's done a nice clean finish on it all the way around. The hardware he's chosen to use, obviously we see it on this side being the screws holding in the backspacer and the clip, but on this side, he's decided to finish it with raised bearings or raised studs. And I just think that's a really cool little design feature. Something obviously not necessary. It was an additional step that was required to do it, and I love the fact that he did. I really, really like the look and the feel of those. The inlay pocket, the inlay itself, everything is done perfectly. Love the custom-made pivot. That's another big, big thing for someone looking at spending a great deal of money on a knife. All the details were done. There's bronze infused into the carbon fiber, so he did a little bronze accent down in the lock to complement it. So there's all these little touches, the reverse side of the pivot with the inlay, that make this worth the money. The fact that it's a simple design may tell some people, well, is it really worth that much money? I like the fact that it's simple. I like the fact that it's not gaudy and overdone and unnecessary bullshit just extraneously put into the knife design for no particular reason. He did a good job of holding himself back. And look at his other designs. He does so on all of his designs. They're clean, they're simple, they're comfortable in the hand, and they're very, very easy to work with. This is a knife that is not a burden to carry. You're going to enjoy reaching in for this knife and carrying it for the day. But with all pros will come cons, and I don't like to do a lot of cons, but if there's one and only one thing, and it's not really a knock on the knife, since I don't know him personally, I don't know if this is just his particular style, or the fact that he does not work with Damasteel often and maybe just is kind of learning his way around it. One of the things, and I discussed that on my previous video with the knives that I've made in Damasteel, is the proper finish for Damasteel is a full true mirror polish. And I explained in that video that if you only do a high satin, you'll kind of get like almost the streaking effect in the contrasting steel. So as you see here, there's no real reflectivity. It's not a mirror polish. There is a little bit of that streaking present. And the contrast is not quite as sharp as it probably could be. Now, what I'm going to do, and this is for the sake of comparison in the finishes of Damasteel, very clearly he is an extraordinarily talented maker, more talented than myself. I cannot and do not make folding knives. I am not comparing the work that I do to the work that he does. I'm simply giving you a basis for comparison in the look, in the appearance of the final product in Damasteel. So again, I want to put that very, very important disclaimer out there. So let's take a look at the differences. Now this is my Hellraiser V2 that I made. And you see everything is obviously very mirror-y polished. We'll put them side to side and do a close-up. If I can get my hands out of the way of the lights. And you'll see the difference in the contrast, especially as we move it out of the light. And you'll see that streaking effect that we were talking about here. That doesn't exist here. And I'll bring out another one of mine. This is the one that I did the rainbow effect on the Damasteel. I haven't shown this on my channel yet. Now I'm going to do a quick video on it at some point soon before it gets shipped off to the customer. But again, that mirror polish really helps to define the beauty of Damasteel. And the certain way that we do the etch will allow you to get a little bit of a greater contrast. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean that this particular blade doesn't look good. It's just not optimizing the material. And that's the key, is optimizing the materials that you work with. I think this is a beautiful Damasteel blade. Certainly, I'm loving it, I'm enjoying it, I'm carrying it. It just could have been just that little bit better. So yes, with a full mirror polish, with tweaking his etch just a teeny tiny little bit, then you'd be seeing a result, more like what the Grimsmos get, or Brian Ty, or Todd Begg, or some of the other greats that work with Damasteel fairly often. And that's the key too, is you really do have to work with Damasteel for a while, or be educated by someone who has, because it is not, and I repeat, not an easy steel to work with on any level, from heat treating to grinding it properly to etching it properly. There are a lot of very specific things to this steel that you need to know in order for it to come out in its optimal form. So when I look at this, I've had many Damasteel blades that were finished in this manner. So again, this is not a knock. It's just something that it is worth pointing out, and I'm excited to see how he begins to work with Damasteel in the future. Overall, am I happy with this order? Am I happy that I have this in my collection? Oh, hell yes. I think that this is a maker that everyone really should be turning their eye to. He does a lot of different materials, a lot of different finishes, from bead blasted to hand rubbed satin and everything in between, and some significantly lower price points. I've seen some of his knives going down into the $400 to $500 range. So you do not have to spend $1,000 or $860 to get an example of his work. You can spend a great deal less and still get a fantastic knife. The very subtle shifts in the way that the handle is shaped to fit better ergonomically in the hand, as the pad of your palm and then your thumb drop down in your natural grip. This follows that. Sorry, I didn't mean to knock the camera. This follows that perfectly. He has his ergonomics down. He has his edges down. This is a stupidly sharp knife. He has his edge geometry down. His bevels are great. The grinding is fantastic on this full flat grind. Everything that he's done on this shows a very clear indication of his skill. And I'm telling you right now, when you feel that detent, again, I go all the way back to the closest comparison I can really make is an R.J. Martin, or some of the older Grimsmo Norsemans that had that really sharp detent. But then again, they were to get a really great flipper out of a Norseman, you a lot of times had a stronger detent. This doesn't have a strong detent. You don't feel like you're breaking your finger to break that detent. It's wonderful. It's near orgasmic. It feels fan-freaking-tastic. And honestly, I'm a big fan of action. It shows that you've put your knife together well. You know how to do it. And for that alone, if I would have just handled this knife at a show, just from handling it and feeling that very specific detent, I would have wanted to have this knife. The addition of having Damasteel, to have this inlay, to have the slim, lightweight nature of this design, all the little details that he's done are simply wonderful additions to something I felt that I would have already wanted to begin with. So them's my thoughts. You can choose to agree or disagree. That's entirely up to you. But I would tell you right now, if you are considering one of his knives, absolutely and in every way do it. Do not hesitate. It's one of those run, don't walk situations. And you know what? We're all cooped up right now and we're itching to spend a little bit of money, especially with that stimulus check coming. Let's not get into the politics of that. What do we like to do when we're bored and we've got a couple extra dollars laying around? We like to buy knives. If you're going to buy a knife, buy something cool, buy something special, and buy something that's not going to... you're not going to have a short honeymoon with. You're going to enjoy it for a good long time. That's my philosophy. That's how I buy. And I'm very fortunate to have this in my collection. All right, guys, I'm out of here for now. I will come back to you in the next day or two with a new video. I try to upload a few more as often as I can during this crazy time. Please be safe. Wash your hands. Wear nitrile or rubber gloves. Wear a mask. Don't go near people. Don't lick strangers. Do what you can to be safe, and let's slow down the spread of this crap. Because I got shit to do, man, and I want to go out for a nice steak dinner again. So let's all work on that. I'll see you guys on the next video.